Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. This week we're going to focus on the first Babylonian dynasty, the ancient Babylonian dynasty. And not a lot is known about this period of time, although this name may ring a bell. A guy by the name of Hammurabi, he was one of the Babylonian kings around this time, about less than 4,000 years ago, but like 3,800 years ago. And this is around the same time that this artifact in question that we're about to talk about was unearthed and documented. Well, unearthed and then later documented. Yeah, it dates back around 3,800 years ago. And just for a little backstory, the origins of the Babylonian dynasty is not super clear because there aren't a lot of surviving documents or evidence of exactly what happened, but they do know that there were an indigenous group, or at least native to the region, I think the Akkadians, and they were dominated by the Amorites, who came more from the Levant and from Syria, like around that area, and that's where Hammurabi's from. Well, anyway, this is important because what we're going to talk about later, this is the first documented, I guess it says customer complaint, but really it's just like a dispute between merchants. And I like this type of stuff that comes out because you don't get a lot of artifacts from people's everyday life from this old of like from 2,000, 3,000 plus years ago. I mean, they have stuff from the Roman Empire. They have receipts, they have business transactions, they have disputes amongst other people, there are love letters, there are letters from soldiers writing back home to their families. I love all that stuff. But other than that, though, they're pretty hard to find, especially the further back you go. So around 1800 BC is when they were in that's I think the transition between Sumeria and to the Babylonian kingdoms was around this time, dynasty rather. Again, not a lot is known, but this kind of sheds light on the everyday life back then of what it was like, and it struck me as very egalitarian, and well, maybe not egalitarian, but people were kind of independent in a way. In terms of enterprise, this guy is a merchant. I'm aware that this guy's a merchant. He's writing to another merchant, and he has people working under him. And he had the wherewithal to write on a clay tablet, because back then not everybody was literate. And so this guy must have been a real big deal, I guess. Like he had resources, and he probably had a reputation. Let's just get into it, shall we? Clay tablet was written from the city of Ur, which is now Tel El Muqayyad in southern Iraq. So this is right where Babylon was, basically, or right in the southern part of where the Babylonian dynasty under Hammurabi. And I'm assuming it's either Hammurabi or one of the kings in that dynasty that this clay tablet was written in. Just a little backstory. The tablet is from a man named Nani to another guy named Ea Nasir, and he's complaining that the wrong grade of copper ore has been delivered, and he's also talks about the misdirection and delay of a further shipment. He's basically calling out some guy for being shady. And remember, this is all just one side. There's two sides to every dispute. So but from what this guy is saying, this Nasser guy sounds like a scumbag, but let's withhold judgment. So the letters are written in the Akkadian language and cuneiform script, one of the earliest forms of writing engraved into the tablet, which is 4.6 inches thick, or high, and 2.6 centimeters thick. So the amount of effort, like I said earlier, required to make it gets across the magnitude of Nani's grievance. So he probably was dealing with this for a while. I mean, it pissed him off enough for him to to either hire a scribe or himself get out a cuneiform bust out his cuneiform pen and his tablet and get going. But either way, he went through some lengths and some hoops to get this message across. And this tablet itself comes from a book full of these types of finds by Assyriologist A. Leo Oppenheim in his out-of-print 1967 book, Letters from Mesopotamia, Official, Business, and Private Letters on Clay Tablets from 2 Millennia. So I would love to get my hands on this book. I'm sure you can get it somewhere, but it seems interesting, and this is just one of many of the artifacts that he has. So let's just get down to the message. So this is all from the clay tablet, what I'm about to read. Tell Ea Nasir, Nani sends the following message. When you came, you said to me as follows. I will give Gimil Sin, when he comes, fine quality copper ingots. You left then, but you did not do what you promised me. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger and said, if you want them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away. Alright, so let me get this straight. So Nani is saying, Ea Nasir promised, I'll give you some good copper. Trust me, I'll give you some good stuff. And then Nani sends his guy over, and then the guy gives him, Ea Nasir gives him some shoddy ingots, and then just says, take it or leave it. He sent messengers, so it was probably kind of a long distance for them to meet. So already it's probably a day trip at the very least. And so he promises one thing, he gives them another thing. And so it inconvenienced him. I mean, he probably had to pay the guy for shoddy work, and it was just a waste of time and money. So he goes on, what do you take me for, that you treat somebody like me with such contempt? I have sent as messengers gentlemen like ourselves to collect the bag with my money, deposited with you, but you have treated me with contempt by sending them back to me empty-handed several times, and that through enemy territory. Okay, so I guess there was when he says enemy territory, he's probably talking about the different city-states. So remember, at the time, it was kind of a time of transition. They're going from one, I guess, Sumeria, one type of power to another. Like I said before, the Amorites took over, and all throughout ancient Mesopotamia, there were city-states, and basically they just acted independently until they were all united by the dynasty. And even then, they still had their arguments and differences. The fact that he's through enemy territory, that's a big deal. And there probably weren't that many copper dealers back then. Any good ones, anyway. The good ones were probably really hard to find. The fact that he gave him the money first, and he still didn't deliver. They came back empty-handed. So he sent these guys, gave the guy money, and they came back with nothing. Either nothing or with these low-grade copper. And I guess he's done this a couple times. You alone treat my messenger with contempt. On account of that one trifling mina of silver which I owe you, you feel free to speak in such a way, while I have given to the palace on your behalf 1,080 pounds of copper, and Umi Abum has likewise given 1,080 pounds of copper, apart from what we both have had written on a sealed tablet to be kept in the temple of Samas. Okay, there's a couple of things here. One, here's another nugget of information. Nani, he owed this guy silver. So this is another wrinkle. Okay, Nani may be in the wrong here. So he gets treated with contempt like this because he already messed up one time. He already owed him silver. So right away, I think there's some parts of the story that are not told here. He just glosses over this. That's interesting. The other thing is these numbers. 1,080 pounds of copper. That seems like a very specific number. I wonder if that's the actual number, or if it's their way of saying, oh, I gave you a shitload of copper. A bunch of copper. Maybe saying a high specific number is just their way of saying, like 172 virgins or whatever. That's like the same thing, right? That just means a bunch of virgins. Like it's the same thing with copper. I think that makes more sense to me, because another guy, Umiya Boom, also gave 1,080 pounds of copper, which seems like that's a lot of weight. So I think he just meant an outrageous sum of something. And to be kept in the temple of Samas, written on a sealed tablet to be kept in I guess that's their deal. They had a written deal, and it was kept in the records of this temple. Anyway, continuing. How have you treated me for that copper? You have withheld my money bag from me in enemy territory. It is now up to you to restore my money to me in full. So he wants his money back, basically. He gave him his money. He gave him a deposit, and he got low. I mean, he's not satisfied with what he got in return, so now he just wants his money back, basically. Even though he owed him silver in the remote past sometime, I gather. Take cognizance that from now on I will not accept here any copper from you that is not of fine quality. I shall from now on select and take the ingots individually in my own yard, and I shall exercise against you my right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt. Okay, so he's still going to do business with him. This is why I think there probably weren't many copper dealers around that were worth their salt, because it seems like Nani got on his bad side first, and then he was treated with this in kind, and now he's going back and complaining. So I don't know who's in the wrong here, but he's saying he's just basically threatens him. You got to come to me in my own yard. I'm not crossing enemy territory anymore. You got to come to me, and I'm gonna handpick what I want, and you're just gonna have to accept that. And that's the end. That's the end of the tablet. So I wonder what happened. I wonder if they continued business, or maybe someone sent thugs to go get to the guy and just kill him, or I don't know. So what do you guys think? Is Nani in the wrong here? Okay, so before we end this, I want to kind of try to construct what life must have been like back then. So both of these guys are probably really wealthy, or they have some sort of reputation because they're literate. I guess it seems like they're literate, or they're hiring guys who are literate to do all this stuff for them. Because I think back then being a scribe wasn't high. I don't think it was a high quality job. I think it was more like you were more like an indentured servant. So maybe they did hire guys to do this. That's what my guess would be. And they had reputations to defend. So this Nani guy, he probably was telling everybody not to do business with this Nasser guy. Yeah, Nasser guy. The fact that these merchants had the freedom to pass through enemy territory as they pleased, just to do business, that is a telltale sign of some type of free enterprise society. So maybe not like America or anything like that, but I think that kind of should clue us in to how their society worked. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a Assyriologist or anything like that, but there are very few records like this that can catch a glimpse of what everyday life was like back then. So I think this is really important. And I would like to get my hands on that book, that 1967 out-of-print book, just to see what else is in there. But, I mean, assuming that these translations are good, it seems like a really interesting topic to delve into. So what do you guys think? What other details can you glean from this document? It seems like things were more civilized than I thought it would be. Because in my mind, I just thought it was just a bunch of warlords and stuff like that, which to an extent is true. But it also seems like there are a lot of independently wealthy and powerful people as well, who not only mingled in the community and dealt with the community, but they were actually prominent figures in the community. And they were able to throw some weight around. They had some power, they had some wealth. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.